Hi, everybody. Okay, I'm going to take a few minutes to kind of get myself acquainted over here. Don't mind me. I feel like I need to be dancing, playing some music, entertaining. Gosh, I got distracted and look, time flew by. Let's try this now. Hello. Can you hear me? Oh, hi, Becky. Thanks for coming. Thank you for replying back. So I assume you can, yes, I can hear. Thank you for, I can hear you. Awesome. People can hear me. That's exciting. How's everybody doing? It's like, it's still dreary in Washington, D.C. I don't know what's happening. My hair is doing this weird flippy thing. Couldn't fix it, so I hope it won't disturb you as I'm trying to talk, keep people focused. It's raining in Southwest Virginia too. Yeah, I think we're all on the same rain path. I thought it was the hurricane, but it apparently went the other way, so we have a different rainstorm. But it's actually muggy. I went outside wearing my sweater and I was thinking about scarf too, but then I was like, well, maybe I'll just go outside first. And then it was like muggy. But my neighbor was outside in his coat, walking the dog, and I said to him, I'm glad I wasn't the only one that misunderstood the weather by looking outside, and he started laughing. So needless to say, I left my sweater somewhere already today, so won't be needed. I hate this time of the year because I feel like I always leave my stuff in my client's house, and they're like calling me like, hey, you left your water bottle, you left your sweater. It's like leaving my clutter behind. But anyway, so it's around 3 o'clock, and we all know how I like to start stuff on time. So I'm going to honor everybody's time for being here. Thank you so much for coming. I'm super excited. This summer, I did a different webinar. I did the 3 mistakes you were making about your paperwork and how to stop doing it. And I had lots of amazing feedback from people. So I'm doing a different one, and I'm still including some of that information too. So kind of expanding on what I did before. And based on the response I have, I feel like I touched a nerve somewhere because people were really, there were a lot of people that signed up for this class. So I'm going to start my PowerPoint here because I have a lot of content planned. Oh, I'm doing it wrong. I always do it wrong. Here, let me find share my screen. That's what I want to do. Okie dokie. Let's see. Now I can start that. Okay, so sorry, it's like way too many buttons to push. Here's my Q&A. Let's see. I can't see it. There we go. Okay, I lost my chat. Need that chat. Okay. All right. I feel like I'm ready. Okay, so now I don't think I'm ready. I can't see my whole screen. That's going to be bad. Bad. Okay. Think I'm ready now. So we're here to talk about the 7 steps to a simpler filing system. And I think the one thing that really helps is commingling. So that's the title of the class. I'm gonna move right along if this thing will work. See, there we go. So, so I believe that everyone can be organized, and I believe that you don't have to live in clutter. And for, there's a bunch of people here that have already worked with me. That's a true belief. I'm not lying. And I believe that you should be able to easily access all your paperwork, and that will help you stay organized. I think those are simple beliefs, and I have been working on mindset for the last 3.5 years. So I'm going to talk about that in this program and in this class because I feel like Sometimes I work with a lot of clients with brain-based conditions, and sometimes you have to change your mindset just a little bit. Like that's the first step in the process. So a little bit of housekeeping, like you made a huge effort to be here. There are lots of people on this webinar. There are two chat boxes. One is a Q&A and one is a chat box. What's in the chat box, everybody can see. What's on the Q&A, I'm the only one that can see. So if you have something that you don't want other people to see, it's over there. I'm gonna try very hard not to get distracted. I do get easily distracted, but I'm gonna try to stay focused just because I have a lot of stuff to cover. And if I see your question, but I also feel like I'm gonna address it, I'm gonna skip it. I did save some time in the end to answer questions, so don't worry. And I will stay as long as I have to make sure that everybody gets their questions answers. But you're here and you have made the time to be here. I always register for these webinars, and then I think like, well, I'll just answer emails, or I'll just do this, or I'll just clean up my office, or I'll just file, and then I'll really listen to it later. Well, later never comes, and then these things pile up, and you know what happens, right? So you're here, you made the time. Maybe you should shut off all distractions and just try to be present. I'm gonna talk fast, and you're probably gonna take a lot of notes, so keep you engaged. So who am I? I feel like a lot of the people that register for this class were my friends and my family and the people that I know and love and people that we have worked with. But I'm Chris Scrott-Wiedelton, and I started Organizing Maniacs, and I am a certified professional organizer in chronic disorganization. And so I specialize in working with people that are a little bit more challenged by clutter than your average Joe or Jane. And I truly enjoy working with people with brain-based challenges because they tend to be super smart, super funny, super amazing, and they have so many talents outside of their, outside of their clutter that I like to help people just embrace who they are and really enjoy their lives. And disorganization is just something that I think we can all overcome. However, I do have to say that I don't cook. I am the girl that burns popcorn. And my family will always tell you that whenever I get invited over, I am the person that gets to clean up just because nobody wants to eat my food. Figures, right? But I believe that I could become a good cook too if I tried. I just choose not to. And I think that's okay, right? So if you choose to be a little bit messy, don't worry about it. You have other talents and everybody's going to love you just the same. So the truth is that an average American receives about 14 pieces of mail every single day. This is not a scientific study. This is just kind of my observation about working with people and receiving my own mail every single day. And I believe that the truth is that most of our clients have paperwork everywhere. And that is probably the #1 reason that people called me for years. I really helped people with their paperwork. And I call that my entry into people's homes. They would call and say, my paperwork is really messy. And will you help me with that? And then, I think having messy paperwork is just a symptom of other things, which is a problem of not having a filing system, which is why you're here today. And so we're going to talk about that. So I work with a lot of people that just really shoves paperwork everywhere. Sometimes I work with people and I think like I'm completely done. And they open another closet and there's more paperwork that comes out of it. And I think, wow, how did that happen? How did people get to just shove paperwork everywhere, every place in their home? And the reason is because people just don't know what to do with it. So you're going to discover in this class how to stop shoving paperwork everywhere, like closets and drawers and obscure places like basements, garages, and bedrooms, and bathtubs, and you name it, I have found paperwork in. So if you ever thought, why can't I ever find my bills or my kids' permission slips or my important paperwork when I really need it, this class is probably going to be good for you. And if you ever have been embarrassed about the doorbell ringing and the Chinese delivery man coming over to deliver, this is a good place for you to be. If you have been embarrassed by your kids' friends coming over and telling you about how messy your house is, or if you have tried to avoid that by putting all of your stuff in said bags and shoving it somewhere, you are in the right place. If you like to have friends over, but you haven't had your friends over for a real long time because you're embarrassed about your paperwork everywhere, you're in the right place. So I also work with a lot of clients that have completely stopped working in their office, and now they're working all over their homes. So they take over their kitchens or their dining rooms, or other places of their bedrooms at times, because their office clutter has gotten so out of control and the paperwork is everywhere. They just don't know what to do with it. This class will help you get more organized. So this training is for you if you have a lot of paperwork and no idea what to do with it. If you are embarrassed and tired and you're ready for change, and if you want to stop bagging and shoving and hiding your paperwork, who wants to do that? So I'm going to help you create a simpler filing system. Oh, I think I see a raised hand. Becky, you have to type. I don't see you typing. Okay, I'm going to continue. So what's in the agenda? We're going to talk about the 7 steps to creating a simpler filing system, and I'm going to talk about the 3 mistakes you're making that's not helping you get rid of your paperwork. So the biggest mistake people are making is, oh, you're raising your, oh, sorry. She raised her hand because I raised mine, right? I asked for it. Thank you, Becky, for participating. So the biggest mistake people are making is like they're keeping everything because they don't know what to do with it. So if I don't know what to do with it, and if I'm afraid of getting rid of it, what is the best option? Is to just keep it, right? Because I may need it one day. For all of those of you that have read Marie Kondo, in one of her books, I think it's on the 2nd book, Spark Joy, she says you should just get rid of everything, because when you don't have anything, then you don't know, you don't need to look for it, so you won't be wasting any time. I thought that was a little extreme, but like we can't go from one opposite to the other, right? We can't just keep everything or get rid of everything. We should just find somewhere in the middle where we can actually find our paperwork. And honestly, I know it seems like a really big challenge, but I think it can be done. I don't know, it might be crazy here, but I think it can be done. So we're going to talk about stop keeping everything. We're going to talk about how to name your files so you can easily file things away. Like people, I see a lot of filing systems, and I am always surprised at like what people are naming their files. Stop doing that. Like, don't be complicated. Just make it simple, people. It's easy. Just make it simple. So, and then we're going to talk about where to, I should probably move my mic over, how to figure out where to put your filing system. Sometimes it's in very obscure places. So, so over the last 10 years, for those of you that have a couple of people registered for this have been my clients for a real long time. Thank you so much for your support over the years. But over the years, people have asked me like, oh, I just can't do this 4 hours at the time with you, and nor can I afford it. How can I work with you? Like, do you have a book I can read? Or, so I have created a program, and today I'm going to tell you a little bit more about that, which is all combined with what I'm talking about today. So, so if you're interested, hang in there. So I am still trying to figure out terminology. So people have been asking me for years to create a system, create an online system, and I refused. People have one of my clients who I love dearly. She always tells me like, why don't you write a book? And I was like, no, I just can't do that. So over the last 3 years, I hired a business coach, and I've been making some changes. So some of these things are coming down the pipeline. But I am, I do have a marketing degree, and I am really organized, but sometimes like making things flow properly haven't quite been my unique brilliance. So if any of you out there see some pattern and you want to help me out, I'd be willing to trade some work with you. So, so the 7 steps don't really have a name. I'm calling it Paper Management 101. but I'm sure there's a better way to call it. The book I'm working on, it's called Wake Up Paperless. And it's going to help people to make decisions about paperwork, file quickly, even when you don't have time. So imagine how you would feel if you could have all of the kids over and they could have a sleepover and nobody would be embarrassed about the paperwork everywhere. We all have the American typical countertops. And how would you feel if you could easily find your paperwork when you actually need it? And how would you feel if you could file in just minutes instead of spending all day Saturday managing your paperwork? And you know who you are because I have worked with you on a Saturday. And who needs to spend all day Saturday managing paperwork, right? It's like, it's always Saturdays. It's like the down day when we come home and we start looking around and we're like, geez, Louise, something's got to give, right? And you start just shoving all of the stuff in bags and you just start dumping it in the basement. Who wants to do that? So imagine how you'd feel if you could actually work in your office, if you could go in there and enjoy the window, enjoy your desk, and not feel like you've been, crammed up in the kitchen, getting yelled at by your husband or wife about the fact that you're trying to have dinner with the kids, or actually not having dinner with the kids and just having everybody scattered around your home because there's nowhere to eat. So I believe that there is a significant difference between cleaning and organizing. And Marie Kondo says, cleaning is one confronting nature, thus bunnies, and organizing is one confronting themselves. I think it's the mindset, it's the effort, right? So we're not going to, I hear people saying this all the time, like, oh, I have to clean before the organizing people come, or I have to clean before the cleaners come over. It's like, those are two different things. You are just kind of cleaning or you're just organizing. Sometimes they're different. So I started Organizing Maniacs in 2007. And people ask me, why did you pick organizing? And the answer is that I was kind of desperate. Like, I had worked for a small remodeling contractor in Fairfax County. And as some of you know, I have a lot of real estate clients. The real estate market crashed in 2007 and they went bankrupt. And I remember feeling really angry about it because I had really put a lot of time and effort into helping them build their business. And I found myself unemployed and I had nothing to show for. I was feeling really hopeless and I knew that getting a new job was going to be very difficult. As a matter of fact, I probably sent out about 100 resumes and I didn't hear from anybody. And in my research, I found a local professional organizer that was a project manager. And unfortunately, I love my local colleagues. I don't even remember who that person was. But she was organizing for a living. And I thought, wow, people are doing that? I'm organized. So I called a couple of my realtor and my subcontractors and I started offering to freelance my work. And I did literally tell one of them, I've seen your office and I know you need me. and he said, you're right. Here are my keys. Help me out. So that's how Organizing Maniacs got started. Literally, it was 10 years ago, right around this time of the year. And as I started organizing people, I discovered that my clients just were keeping way too much paperwork. But nobody knew why. I would ask people like, what do you do with this? And they were like, I don't know. I just don't know what to do with this. So I keep it. And at the time, to be completely honest and transparent, I didn't know it either. So I was like, all right, so let's just create a filing system for it. So, and then at some point I'm like, everybody's keeping all of this paperwork. Nobody knows why. I don't know why. So I started researching. And I started researching, I felt like, well, record retention, right, should be easy enough to find. But there was so much conflicting information everywhere. And even sometimes when I worked with my clients and they would be like, oh, here's something my accountant gave me. This is how long I should keep, this is how long they told me I should keep paperwork. I would read it and I'd be like, well, I just read something else from a different accountant and it says something completely different about it. So I realized that people were just trying to give the best information they could, but there is, and there still isn't any one resource that just says like, this is how long you should keep paperwork. So, and I've seen it all, right? I've seen the basements full of paper. I've seen homes completely overtaken by paperwork. And I have even, not that long ago, I have seen bills from the 1960s. Just didn't know what to do with it. They just kept it, and they had the space, so they just kept it. So over the years, I feel like I've done a lot of research, and I have literally helped hundreds of clients create simpler filing systems. I can't even say it. And now I feel like I know exactly what people need to do and how I need to help them through that process, right? I no longer let my clients, how does it go? Organizing maniacs don't let their clients just keep paperwork they no longer need. I am really helping people to be ruthless through that process, because when they're saying, well, I don't know what to do with this, should I keep it? I start asking questions, and we start really figuring out, why are you really going to keep this paperwork? So, so the paper filing systems that I normally give people are just not based on guessing anymore, right? They're just based on research. They're based on experience. They include making ruthless decisions, and really making a decision about every single piece of paper. So in 1975, Business Week wrote an article, and they said that in sometime in the near future, which would be about now, that our offices would be completely paperless. And that clearly hasn't happened. And I don't believe that in my lifetime, I'm going to see anybody be completely paperless. I am pretty ruthless with my paper, but I'm very tactile. I still print a lot of stuff. I do recycle, but however, I still have the need to read it that way. And I believe that there's a lot of people out there still doing that. And if you're here, I believe you believe that too. So paperless is probably not going to happen. Maybe some of the millennial kids are going to do that, but I'm hopeful for them. But I'm seeing a lot of paperwork even in their homes, so not looking good. Harris Interactive reports that 23% of adults say they pay their bills late and incur late fees. That's a really high number of people paying their bills late because they can't find their bills. I estimate that an average American receives about 90,000 pieces of mail in their lifetime, and 1/3 of it is junk mail. That's pretty crazy. That's a lot of mail. In the book, ADD Friendly Ways to Organize Your Life by Judith Kohlberg and Kathleen Nadeau, they said that we receive more mail in 1 month than our parents received in 1 year. And we received more mail in 1 year than our grandparents received in a lifetime. That gave me chills, right? We received more mail in 1 year than our grandparents received in a lifetime. So you're probably thinking like, wow, it makes sense why my entire home is overrun with paperwork. So the biggest mistake I see people doing a lot, which is probably the number one reason why you have too much paper, is that you don't know what to do with your paperwork. So you're keeping everything and you're keeping it forever. I worked with Mary, and she wanted to move. She had bought a brand new, beautiful home, not very far from her other home. And she had 12 4-drawer filing cabinets in the basement, completely filled with paper. It was a combination of some old and some new. And she actually happened to have some bills from the 1960s when she first got married. And I started asking questions. First, part of the problem is that she had just lived there for a real long time, right? So you have time and space and you don't have the need for it, so might as well keep it. But I started asking questions about, why was she keeping this stuff? How is it relevant to her life? And a lot of the times she was really easy and could make decisions really fast, but a lot of times she just didn't know why. So And I am sure that some of you out there can relate to that, right? So the first question you should be asking yourself is, why am I keeping this piece of paper, right? Does it go with my taxes? Is it something that I need to keep permanently? Like, does it go with my home? Does it pertain to my car, to my pets, to my kids? Why is this piece of paper important? And how is it relevant, and how is it going to be used in the future? And it's funny because I have a client that I help him manage his paperwork. And sometimes I go there and he's like, I know, how am I going to use this piece of paper? So it's like, I think that is a habit that you need to make for yourself, right? You don't need me to ask you, how are you going to use this piece of paper? If you don't have a good answer, probably don't need it. So, and there are a lot of things that I think people think like, I probably need to keep this forever, but I really don't. That's happening in your filing system. And medical receipts is one of them. There's a lot of confusion about why are we keeping medical receipts and what are we doing with them? And they're different than your medical records. So if you go get some blood drawn and they actually gives you a report and it tells you something about your body, that's a report. You should probably keep that for a little while, if not forever. But a medical receipt, which is the bill for that blood being drawn, it's probably very short-term use, right? So I have more hands raised. Isabel, I can see your raised hand, but I don't see your question. So maybe you want to find the Q&A box and type it up. So, so why are you keeping this piece of paper? Like, is the medical receipt something that you're going to use for your taxes? Or I've worked with clients that have, medical histories that they want to keep. So they're using that as part of the story that's telling. Like, I went to get blood drawn in 1999, and then I also got it drawn in 2001. So how are you using that piece of paper? What is the story that is telling in your family? Are you sending it to, to your insurance company to be reimbursed? What is the purpose of that piece of paper? Hold on, I'm going to read the question. So what she's saying is that that in the past there has been an issue with the insurance company and that she needed to produce those receipts. So what I'm going to say on that is that if you are writing off a lot of things, or if you're sending a lot of things for reimbursements, and if you have a complicated medical history, or if if your clients are doing that, if you're just keeping a piece of paper, then it's probably not the same thing. But if you have a complicated medical history, right, that's something different. And I think that's what she's talking about. And I think it goes with understanding what is the story that this paperwork is telling for you, right? If you have a lot of paperwork and it's complicated, it's much more likely that you should keep that long-term or longer term than if you just have a few pieces of paper or even a dozen or so pieces of paper. Does that make sense? Are we on the same? Did I understand your question correctly? Just type it in and let me know. So mistake number 2 people are making is they're making their filing systems really complicated. So I've worked with people that would have, 200-300 files. I can't even imagine what you would put on 200-300 files. Well, I can because I've seen it, but it's like, I don't understand why you would need that many files, because you would never find anything. So how many files are in your own filing system, right? Is that a reason that it's hindering your filing process? Is that a reason why, if you have a stack of paperwork and you're thinking, if your brain, you don't even have to think, if your brain subconsciously is thinking, that's gonna take 20 minutes. The automatic answer to this is like, I'm gonna put it here for now, and then I'll come back to it later. But you and I both know that later never comes. So if your filing system, if you find yourself saying, I'm going to put it here for now and I'm going to do it later, it's because it's too complicated. You need to narrow it down, and you need to streamline, and you need to combine and commingle, right? I I work with people sometimes and they have way too many filing cabinets, and they have banker boxes, and they have all sorts of nooks and crannies when they're putting paperwork. Like, I want you to question whether that's really necessary or whether that's really working for you. So I worked with a client the other day, and she had 5 files for the exact same thing. It was her car, right? And the reason is because she was she was just, one, the files were in different places, so there was too many filing cabinets to begin with. 2, it's like she forgot what she had named, so she just created a new file every time she found a new piece of paper. And 3, there were just not knowing what to do with the paper, so she just created a new filing system. So eliminating non-essential files will help you streamline that, right? So if you only had 1 or 2 filing drawers that were for like your main stuff, you'll be much less likely to have to go through like 4 or 5 different places to find the paperwork, and you'll be much more likely to find it and be much more likely to file it. One thing that I see a lot is people get fancy with their filing systems and how they call their files. And because you get fancy, you forget, right? So this particular client, you know, one of them said car, the other one said Ford, the other one said transit, you know, but she couldn't remember what it was. So I said to her, what do you call it? And she said, well, it's a car. I have a car. That's what it is. So I said, for God's sakes, then call the file a car. So we did that. And so lo and behold, you call the file one thing, whatever your brain remembers it to be, and then it'll be easy for you to remember where to go put the paperwork. But sometimes, you know, I work with people that call their cars actual names. Like I worked with a client that called his car George. It's like, so don't create a file that says car because you never remember to go there. You need to create a file that says George, so you know that's your car. But I also see people with a lot of different, you know, complicated filing systems that also include things like exercise and self-care and health and meditation and spa. Like, can all of those things just be one category? Can they just be self-care? Can they just be exercise? Can they just have, you know, whenever I have time to take care of myself, whatever it is that they need to be, like combine things together, right? Commingle is going to become your friend in the process of eliminating paperwork. So the third biggest mistake I see people doing is having filing systems that are not really easily accessible. And my last office that I worked with, the filing cabinet was literally under all of the paperwork that needed to be filed. And then it started cascading in front of it. So the filing cabinet is under the pile and behind the pile. That's problem number 1. The problem number 2 is the filing system is on the complete opposite end of the house that anybody ever goes to. So when you have something to file, who wants to walk all the way over there to get their filing system, you know, accomplished? They're not. Like, having a filing system where it's easily located is extremely important. And I worked with Pam, and she was super organized. She was one of those people that she called us, and I walked in and I was like, okay, well, we're going to have a good time organizing your junk drawer. And everything was really neat. There was a bit of paperwork in this one pile in the kitchen. And so I always, you know, I try to understand what is the problem? Like, what is happening here? Why are you into filing? What is the issue? And then I started asking questions about, you know, okay, what is the issue here? And then I said, where is your filing system? And she said, well, it's upstairs on the 3rd floor in the corner office, way over there. And I said, well, how often do you go there? And she's like, not very. I was like, well, there lies the problem, right? Who wants to go over there, 3rd floor on the right in the middle of nowhere to file? And so I said, well, let's get rid of some pots and pans and let's create a filing system in your kitchen cabinet where you can easily open the door, find your filing system, stick the paperwork that needs to go in there. And that immediately solved her problem, a good majority of it, right? And then there were more issues with not knowing what to keep and having too many files, and we had to move some stuff around. But before you knew it, that problem was easily solved just by putting a filing drawer in the kitchen. And I know that, I work sometimes with people and they have really small spaces and they're like, well, but I can't give up I can't give up a cabinet, or I don't even have a drawer. And I'm like, sometimes you just have to set priorities, right? Even if you have to give up a drawer space to make that your paper, I'll put it here for now, or this is the paper that's gonna hang out and wait to age itself out so then I can throw it away. But you have to create a place for it to go. Otherwise, it has no other option but to be cluttering your counter. So find a way to move your filing system closer to you. And yes, your paperwork may need good real estate in your home. Yes, I said it. Paperwork is going to need good real estate in your home. So, so the 7 steps that I take people through in my filing projects I think it's pretty simple. So it's a 3-part filing system. One, it creates a permanent filing system. So this is going to be like your home, your car, your children, your pets, basic things like that. Those are the ones I can think of right now. A temporary filing system is to accommodate all of the things that are temporary. Those are all of the FYI pieces of paper you receive. They are all of the, the receipts and the utility bills and the statements and all of the things that people give to us that you are like, great, thank you so much for sending me. I don't need that anymore. So people always ask me, like, what's an FYI piece of paper? So here's my God honest truth answer. You owe somebody money, or you gave somebody money and they give you a piece of paper that says, hey, you either owe me or you gave me money. And you say, hey, thank you so much. I appreciate that I gave you money. Good for you. And now that piece of paper is automatically useless, right? So you're not using that piece of paper for taxes, or you're not using it for anything permanent. That piece of paper is temporary. So we set up a system to manage that. And I think as you go through your office, there is a lot of that happening on your, that's basically the stuff that's cluttering everybody's desks, or that's getting piled up everywhere. You also have to create a filing system that makes sense for you and your family. And even though I feel like I pretty much have like systematized the filing systems that I give people, I think there is always a little bit of customization that happens because everybody's family is a little bit different, or you may like to have more pieces of paper about self-care, and that may be really important to you. Or you may be, a meditation guru and you like a lot of research on meditation. So your filing system is clearly going to be a little bit different than a person like me that may not do any self-care and just doesn't even have a file for self-care. So there's definitely accommodations that happen there, but it has to make sense for you and your family. So whenever I tell people, so like I said, I'm writing this book that's called Wake Up Paperless, and I don't ever mean completely without paper. I just mean with less paper. And if you can make a system that makes sense for your brain and that's easy to maintain, I believe that you're going to spend less time maintaining all of the stuff that's currently sitting around everywhere in your home. Because once again, don't need to raise hands. Thank you, Becky, for participating. Is who wants to spend all their time filing? I know you wanted to raise your hand, but you don't. Like I don't. The last thing in my list of things to do, if I had all the time in the world, would be to be filing, right? And I've created filing systems for people just really based on that, because nobody wants to be filing ever. There's never a time when I go somewhere and people say, oh, I'm so glad you're here. We're going to spend all day filing. Woohoo! Nobody ever does that. So the first step that I take people through is goal setting, right? We already talked a little bit about that, like understand why you're keeping the paperwork. Do you have a business? When was the last time you filed your taxes? Have you been audited? Isabel just talked about medical, like what is your medical situation, right? Are you filing a lot of claims? Do you have a lot of medical expenses? Like what is your history? How does that piece of paper impact your, you know, your family, your paperwork, your lifestyle? What are you keeping the paperwork for? Sorry, there's another question. The question is about commingling. By commingling, yes, I do mean broader categories. So combine as much things together into one file than you would. The question is about recording. Yes, I'm going to send out a playback, but you don't want to miss out having to ask questions right now. Yes, so the question has to do with whether you're using manila folders or hanging files. I never use manila folders. No offense to the manila folders world or the people. I always use hanging files, and I use really big, good tabs. I don't have one laying on my desk right now, but I like the 3-inch tab ones just because you can accommodate so much more in a hanging file than you can put it in a manila folder. And it's so much easier to read. I'm a huge fan of, like, you know, this is like the 80-20 rules. Only about 20% of what you actually file away is ever going to be used. So even if you have a thick, fat file, the likelihood that you're really going to have to spend a lot of time looking for it, it's very small. However, it's super easy to put it away, which is really the most important part until you actually need it, right? I think I got all the questions. So step number 1, goal setting. Understanding your paperwork, why are you keeping it, how is it relevant, how are you going to use it, right? So understanding your motivation. I think sometimes, like, why are you doing this? Like, how are you going to stay motivated? Getting an office organized, it's a process. Like anything we do, it's not, no magic wands available. So it's gonna take time. So how are you gonna stay motivated? What is it that's gonna keep you coming back to continue doing that work? Because like I said, no one wakes up on a Saturday morning and says, I'm gonna go get some labels, tabs, and I'm gonna get it done once and for all. The only way people do that is when I'm knocking on their door at 8 o'clock in the morning saying, come on, we're gonna do this, right? So that's the truth. Having accountability, always important. It may not be me, and if you can't work with an organizer, maybe find a buddy, like one of your friends. Everybody has paper issues. Maybe you can trade, accountabilities with each other. As anything that we do, it's going to take time. So how are you going to manage your schedule? Where are you going to fit that in? How are you going to pencil yourself some time to actually go through the paperwork? You're going to have to make a lot of decisions. Office tend to be probably one of the worst projects, because when you are organizing your closet, everything is like thick and big. And so you're making lots of decisions, but it's limited. When you're working in your office, there are thousands of decisions you have to make. I always talk about mindset, right? You have been disorganized in the past. You have failed it, getting organized in the past, but things are about to change. Like, you're here. You want to be different. You want to do different, right? Because you are expecting different results. So you're about to change. Your life is about to change. Your paperwork is about to change. So you have to remind yourself of that, right? Because if you're like, well, I just created this great filing system, but I'm just no good at it. I'm just no good at it. It's not good for me. But, I'll just put it here for now. So your pile is still going to be the same, right? I remember one time I worked with a client, and I gave her the filing system, and then I went over there, like, I don't know, a couple of months later, and she was like, well, it just doesn't work for me. And I was like, well, it doesn't really look like you put any paper in there. And she was like, no, I didn't, because it didn't work for me. And I was like, you didn't even try it. And then I called her out, and she was like, you're right, I didn't even try it. And I was like, give it a try, right? You have created this filing system, try it. And now it works, right? It took a little time. It's like I just said this to somebody this morning. You don't go to the gym and say, hey, I want to lose 12 pounds. Give them $24, go in there for an hour and then leave and say, what? I haven't lost 12 pounds. What happened? Right? And then you just give up. It's a time over matter here. You have to keep going back. You have to keep working at it. And then eventually it works. Same thing with mindset. So in step number 2, we talk about products. Like, what kind of products are you going to need? Like I just said, I don't use manila folders, which appalls a lot of people. I hope you're not appalled out there, but it's like, I don't see the need for it. I don't like the way it hangs. I don't like the way it stores. No offense to the manila folder people. I just give them just as much of my money on the hanging files. So I just replace it with something that's much more useful to me and my clients, and maybe that can work for you too as well. But whenever we work with people, it's like, I've seen so many products that people have purchased and they thought, like, they go to the big box store and they think like, I'll just get this one more thing and that will make me organized. And unfortunately, that is not the solution to the problem, right? The solution is actually figuring out the system and then actually doing it. Those two things are going to solve your problem, not getting more things. So we give people our exact product list and the things that we recommend and that we have find just works just as well. Do you have a filing cabinet? I don't know how many times I work with people and they want to have organized filing systems, but they have no cabinet. See the problem here? You've got to have at least one drawer. I've worked with people with the tiniest places ever, and you have to make a space, or you have to commit to going paperless, one or the other. No magic wand, remember? So do you have a filing cabinet? An average family really shouldn't. I know people are, I get hate mail for this all the time. An average family should really not have more than 4 to 5 drawers of filing cabinet. There, I said it. Keeping more than that, you're probably keeping things that you don't need. Or at the very least, you're keeping things that could be archived. You may be keeping memorabilia in there. Memorabilia doesn't need to be in your filing system. So we consider what you're keeping in there may save you some drawer space. This is my favorite product. I have had, sorry, picture is kind of blurry. I have had this particular label maker probably the whole time I've been organizing, and I'm probably on my 3rd one. And as you know, I use mine like a couple of times a day, every day, for 5 days a week. This is from Costco. I love Costco. I love this label maker. It's just beautiful. If you don't own one, I highly recommend it. But step number 3 is the actual sorting. So now we have talked about your mindset. We have talked about products. We have acquired a filing cabinet. So now we're going to start sorting paperwork. And people are like, what is the magic? How do you just pick a pile, any pile? I like to start with things that are older. So maybe don't pick your desktop pile, because that's probably the earliest paperwork you have that this hasn't made it to like the basement or the closet or, the bathtub. Find a pile that's old and start making decisions, right? You'll likely find places of paper everywhere that has aged themselves out. I was interviewed for a podcast, Successful Nonprofits, and he used that terminology, and I love this, so I'm using it. Age themselves out. So it will help with discarding. So as you build self-confidence about what you're getting rid of, right? Because you clearly are now like, I really don't need any of this anymore. You'll start making good progress. You'll feel good about your decision-making process. If you get bogged down and you're like, I don't know what to do with this, just create a pile of like, I have to come back to this. One of my lovely clients called this multi-view devaluation. So the more times you see something, the less value it has. I'm going to write a book about that one day too. So if the first time you see it, you're like, I have no idea what this is, I'll just put it here. Unless you're doing it repeatedly with every single piece of paper, then stop doing that. But like if you have a few, just put it over there and just make a decision. And then you can go back and decide how do I need it? Because once again, once you start exercising your decision making about the paperwork, it tends to get a little bit easier. I always say be ruthless, not reckless. And I should get a drink. Dripping on my shirt. Sorry about that. Be ruthless, not reckless, right? So evaluate every single piece of paper. Like, how you, can't say this enough, how are you going to use this piece of paper? What is it doing in my office? How am I using it? Does it go with long-term stuff? Am I keeping it just in case? Do I need this short-term or long-term? And if you find yourself completely fatigued, like just gonna throw this whole pile in the trash, don't do that, right? Stop the process immediately. Go get a drink, go take a walk, go do something else, and then you can come back and start the process over again. I have worked with people and they were like, I just don't need that pile. I know everything is really old over there. And then I'll find their birth certificate or their passport or, you know, a letter written by their dad before they passed away. So don't be reckless. Make sure that you are actually sorting through that stuff and making good decisions. So when you're done, you are not like, man, where is my passport? And then you're going to be like searching everywhere because you didn't make good decisions to begin with. And you're going to be fearful that it's thrown away. When you make good decisions at every step of the process, you can finish by saying, I feel really good that I didn't throw my passport away. It has to be somewhere else. Can I say enough commingle? Commingle. Like, don't be afraid to group things together, like your exercise and your fitness and your health. And these things kind of like, as you start sorting, they start kind of developing patterns, right? It is so much easier to file 20 pieces of paper in 3 files than 20 pieces of paper in 20 files. So step number 4 is understanding record retention. I feel like I spend a lot of time in this part of the process because, you know, I think every piece of paper we have has a different meaning. And that when you don't have a filing system that's good at all, it just takes like getting a base and understanding your situation and understanding why you're keeping this piece of paper or not. So, you know, sometimes I work with people that have a lot of medical, paperwork. So understanding that, what the long-term value is and how are they keeping it. Sometimes I work with people that haven't filed their taxes in a long time. So how long do you need to keep that? How far back? You know, I have worked with people that had not filed their taxes in like 10 years, you know, so you're talking about keeping paperwork for like 17, 20 years worth of history because they haven't filed their tax. They had intentions of doing it and they really wanted to, and they didn't sleep. They were overstressed. I mean, their lives was feeling awful because they couldn't get that one thing accomplished. But, you know, I always say that we are all one nervous breakdown away from hoarding. And I think that I can empathize and see how that can happen to people, how you think like, I'm gonna, you know, my paperwork is messy and I can't file my tax this year and then I'll do it next year. And before you know it, it's completely out of control. So understand how the paperwork is relevant to you. It's very important before you start pitching things. So what do you, and the opposite end is like, what do you really need to keep, right? Excuse me, are you in a lawsuit? Like, how is your paperwork relevant? Complicated medical histories. I think the top 5 things I see is like complicated medical histories, audits, not filing your taxes, medicals, you know, in children with learning differences that have big school paperwork piles of things that need to be recorded. So basically what I'm leading to is, I know this is a lot of information, right? And I'm going to, so over the years, it takes me an average of 4 appointments to work with people to kind of just get the basics set up. So I'm creating an online class, and what I'm going to talk to you guys about, if you're interested in knowing more, is how to join my 4-week boot camp, where I'm going to go over all of this a little bit more in detail, and that will help you create the basics, the foundation of a filing system. But in step 5, we talk about non-paper items, and those are all the things that kind of go into our office that don't really belong there. And they're like, manuals and electronics, accessories, kid memorabilia and artwork, and all of those things that find themselves into our office, which should not be there. So in step 6, it's the actual filing system. And people always say this to me, like, why do we wait until the very end to create a filing system? And I always say, because it takes all of the sorting and understanding of all of the stuff that's around before you can actually get to like creating the structure of what you're doing. And if you can think of it in a way of like building a house, you wouldn't just go to a site and then just start hammering things or start putting wood together, right? You have to get drawings, and you have to get plans, and you have to get permits, you have to get a foundation, and then you decide where the bedrooms and the kitchen and all the things are gonna go, where the electrical and the lights and everything's gonna go, and then you start building, right? This is kind of the same way. Like the steps 1 through 6 is basically discovering where you're going to put all of these things and how they're going to fit together. And then basically you can wrap it up by creating the filing system. And in step 7, we always talk about maintenance, because it doesn't matter how beautiful your system is when I leave. If you're not going to put anything out, put anything in, or take anything out, the system is completely useless, right? Once again, I'm going to walk into your office. You're going to have piles everywhere. And then probably in 3 to 4 weeks, you're going to be like, that Chris girl came here, took my money, and look, I'm still disorganized. So we have to take personal responsibility, and we have to maintain. So I believe you should reevaluate your system regularly, whether it's, monthly, a little bit, yearly, a little bit, every couple of years, a little bit more. Like when you get rid of big things, like if you sell a car, if your child graduates, gets married, move out, if your pet passes away, if you're move and sell a house, like just get rid of these things whenever you reach those milestones. So I worked with Linda several years ago, and her husband had called me because they basically had kept every single piece of paper they had for about 40 years. They didn't quite have 12 filing cabinets worth of stuff, but they had quite a bit. And they had no idea where to start, what to keep, or how to organize it. This was a little bit above of an average project for me, just because of the significant amount of paper. They also had real estate businesses, lots of things that generated more paperwork. So we started sorting and organizing and archiving, and eventually we created a good filing system that made sense for them. Unfortunately, Linda's husband passed away about 6 months after we started working together. And in about a year after we had worked together, I heard from Linda, and she told me that one of the most valuable parts of going through all of that process with me was that after he passed away, that she knew exactly where she could find all of the important paperwork that she needed. And, she knew where her insurance policies were, the wills, estate planning, and all kinds of things. And it made such a difficult time much more manageable for her. And hopefully that none of us ever have to go through that process with a loved one, or that our paperwork be in complete disarray during that process, right? And a couple of years after that, she called me, and she was so excited because she was able to refinance her house all by herself, because once again, she knew where her paperwork was. And so she called to celebrate about how happy she was about that. And I was so proud of her, right? Because it's like, not only had this person go through like anguish of like having to sort through her paperwork, and then she lost her loved one, and then all of these things that could have been so much more complicated and painful actually made her feel better that she had spent the time doing that. So imagine if you could find your paperwork easily, right? Isn't that the thing we all want? If something happened to your significant other, or if something happened to you, that everybody could find the paperwork that they needed without having to spend months looking for them. So imagine if you could simply file your paperwork without having to keep moving the piles around regularly. And imagine if you could file in minutes and have a super simple system that you could easily identify where every important paper needed to go. So I basically took you through the process that we take people, and we talked about the importance of having good naming convention, right? You don't want to be the person with 5 car files. You want to figure out what is it that you're calling them and how is it that you're going to label them. You want to be ruthless, not reckless, and you want to really analyze and figure out why you're keeping every single one of these pieces of paper. You want to commingle as much as possible and simplify. Nobody wants to have 250 files. You don't want to either have to file 20 pieces of paper on 20 files. You want to file 20 pieces of paper and at the very most 3 files. Right, so how many of you think you're going to need some help with this? So this is the part where I tell you about my filing system. So this summer I launched what I'm calling Paper Management 101. It is a 4-week boot camp, and I'm going to start a new class in October. And it is a 4-week program, but it's going to be 5 weeks because I have to take a week off in between. So we're going to meet for 4 Thursdays at 3 p.m. in October and November. And the class will be live, but it will also be recorded. So if you can't attend on Thursdays, I promise you'll have the homework, the recording by Friday, and then you can listen to it and take advantage of the weekend. We're going to have, I'm going to give you the framework to create a filing system that you always wanted and didn't know how to get it. In the framework, though, so I think in my last class, people were like, oh my God, I can't imagine having to sort through all of my paperwork in 4 weeks. And that's why I'm saying you'll have the framework. And the framework will be there for you as you sort through all of the paperwork that may be around your office. And then you can go back to listening to some of the recordings, and then, we'll still be here to help you in the Facebook group with accountability and celebrating your wins. So the dates we're meeting will be the 5th, the 12th. We're going to skip the 19th, the 26th, and the 2nd. And we're meeting at 3 p.m. Eastern time, just like we did today. And in the 4 weeks, we're going to cover the goal setting. I'm going to give you all of my favorite products. We're going to talk in depth about sorting. I'm going to give you, I would probably spend a couple of hours just talking about record retention. And then we're going to talk about how to deal with all of the non-clutter stuff in your office. I'm going to show you how to create a filing system, kind of a look behind what I have created for myself. And then we're going to talk about how, to maintain the system that you have created, because at the end of the day, that's probably one of the most important part of the process. So we're going to go in depth on sorting through paperwork and establishing value, what goes into your temporary filing system. Like I said, that's about 80% of the paperwork that you have that you may be keeping long-term, but you probably don't need to. I'm going to help you design that simple filing system. We're going to stop shoving papers in bags and closets, spare rooms. We're going to start making better decisions about what paperwork stays in your home and what gets archived. So in module 1, which is week 1, we're going to cover 2 modules. In the first week, we're going to talk about the goal setting and motivation, effective time blocking, mindset. I'm going to talk a little bit about brain-based challenges and how that impacts my clients, and how does that go with creating filing systems. I think that's probably a really important thing. Somebody said to me, like, well, I don't have a brain-based challenge. I don't really need to know that. I was like, yeah, you kind of do, because we create systems that are simplified. And who doesn't want simplified, right? Everybody should want simplified. I know you do, you just don't know it yet. We're going to talk about effective habit formation, and that's goes with maintenance. I'm going to give you, once again, my product lists, and where to put your filing system. We're going to give you, I'm going to give you a list of my favorite products so you can just shop from it. On week 2, we're going to go in depth on the record retention guidelines. And I can't say this enough. This is probably the biggest, this is the real reason why people give me money, is to understand this part of the process, is why do you keep things and how are you keeping it? How do we help? How do we make this process easier for you? What should be kept temporarily, permanent? How do you store your taxes? How long you should keep a lot of this stuff? We are going to talk about creating good documentaries, and documentaries is like, how do you narrow it down, like this is your main category and what are the things that goes underneath it. Effective naming conventions is like, okay, how do you discover if you call your car a car, right? There's a little bit of like a exercise you can go through with that. How can you be ruthless without being reckless? We're going to go in detail into that. On week 3, we're going to talk about incoming mail and how to manage it, because God knows I came home just a little while ago and there was a really big pile sitting in my kitchen. It comes every day, whether you like it or not. Sometimes even on Sundays, I feel like it gets delivered. I'm going to give you some ideas to manage some of this non-paper management items, like your manuals and your cords and your electronics and your kid project and all of the other stuff. The last part, we're going to actually create a filing system, wrap it all up together. I'll let you look over my shoulder on some of the stuff that I have created for myself. Maintenance. And on the 4th week, it's a live call with Q&A. I have no agenda. I have no plans. Unless nobody has anything, then I always come up with something good. The last class I did medical paperwork, and I'm gonna provide that into the archives for this class, so that will be a bonus for you guys. But it's a complete live call. Just know that whatever questions you're asking, there will be other people there and they're gonna hear it, but this is a safe place, and I try to keep your information as private as possible. However, people are going to benefit from your questions. So what do you get? It's a 4-week training program, and this is my best work, literally. This is like, I feel like I've spent my whole life managing paper, and this is like the culmination of my light. This is the culmination of what I've been working on. So I'm really excited about it. And people have paid me a lot of money to create filing systems for them. But you won't be able to, you won't need to invest the kind of money that some people have invested. I'm testing this material still. You'll be my 2nd class, so I feel like I'm way better than my 1st class, just because I narrowed it down, the content, because there's so much I can teach people, and 4 weeks is a short amount of time. So I'm really kind of condensing it and just really streamlining what needs to be taught. I'm eventually going to sell this into the world for about $2,500, but I'm giving this program to you today for $697. And because you guys are awesome and you took the time out of your busy afternoon to be here, I'm going to give you some bonuses. So for the first 20 people that sign up, I'm going to give you the medical archive. But I'm going to give you a bonus call. So if nobody comes, we're just going to talk about medical again. But if you come to the call and you have, if you have other questions, we can do that. That's going to be that's another bonus call with more content that we can create. Bonus number 2 is the Facebook group. So that's kind of self-explanatory. We're going to all be there answering questions, celebrating your wins, being accountable, being part of a community of like-minded maniacs. I am no tolerance for, meanness. So we're going to have a nice, fun group. Some of you guys have been in my organizing challenges this year, and it's a fun place to be. So having a filing system that is simple has made a huge difference in the amount of time I spent filing. That's what Terry said to me. Having a filing system made a huge difference for me. That was a little bit redundant. But when you know where to put your paperwork, you can finally stop piling. What a concept. That's what Sam said. So the program is $697, and I'm going to offer a 2-payment plan if you don't want to pay it all at once. first payment would be due today, and the next payment would be due in 30 days. And if you're ready to get started, you can go to organizingmaniacs.com/papermanagement101, and I'm going to copy this. I have to get out of here for a second in case you're ready to join me and you have to go. Okay, I'm going to put that in the chat group. Okay, that's there. Okay, so I don't believe in taking people's monies and not giving them value. So if you, for some reason, decide this was not a good use of my time or my money, I will give you your money back. I'm also, so there's a huge group of people here, and I'm really excited about this class. So I really know how people like to procrastinate and think about it later and then try to figure out how to get out of it. Because I know you're here because you wanted to learn more about how to have a better filing system. So I'm going to give you another bonus. And you do have to make a choice right now before this call is over. So for the first 10 people that sign up, I'm going to give you an individual strategy call with me via video chat so you and I can see each other. You can show me around if you want to. And this is basically 100% about you and about your paperwork and about what you need. And this is what I call pick my brain, right? You can tell me what you're struggling with and I can help you with that. So I know what some of you are thinking, like, I don't want to spend the money. Maybe I should just call and get them to come over here and help me. That's an option too. But if you just want to do this by yourself, this is the only time I'm going to offer it at this price. I'm raising the price up. It's not going down. So once this offer is over, that's that. No crying about it. No crying and organizing. I know you're thinking, I don't have time. It's 4 weeks. Too much time. I don't have time. Yes, you're going to have to commit to doing it in the next 5 weeks. And you're going to have access to the information for, for a year. And you don't have to do it now if you don't want to. You can do it later. However, we're going to be doing it together. We're going to be in community. We're going to be accountable. And we all know that that's the best time to get stuff done. So, but if not now, when? The holidays are right around the corner. I've just been seeing Halloween candy everywhere. So October will be here in no time. And before you know it, your family is going to be coming over for Thanksgiving and Christmas. So I know what you're also thinking, well, I tried that other filing system and that didn't work for me. So yes, I understand that. And people call me all the time with like really fancy filing systems. And can you consider that maybe you're making some or lots of the mistakes that I talked about today, and that maybe I could help you fix some of them, and that would improve your filing system? So you may also be thinking like, will this really work for me? Remember my one client that I went over there and she's like, well, that doesn't work. And I said, did you put any paper in it? And she said, no. And I was like, well, you should try it, right? So what I'm going to teach you is really different than what you have seen out there. I don't know that I have seen any of my colleagues doing anything like it. So it is going to require you to think differently and do differently, and you're probably going to get different results. But that's kind of what we're here for, right? We're here to learn something that's outside of what we have learned, that can actually help us manage our paperwork permanently. The system is designed for simplicity. Remember how many times I said, who wants to be filing? No one, ever. So it's made to be time efficient, which everybody wants. Nobody wants to be wasting their time ever filing. And it is a simple system to be followed by anybody. It can work for you, it can work for your family, it can either work for your, for your assistant to put the stuff in, or whatever it is, whoever it is that's managing your paperwork. Maybe even your kids can file for you because it's so easy. I should say that, because even your kids could file this filing system. So even if you just learn how long you should keep stuff, Like, would that improve the paper clutter you already have, right? Even if you learned nothing else and you did nothing else, but you just learned how long you should really keep all of the paperwork, would that make a difference for you? Bet you the answer yes. So this program is not for everybody. So like I said, I don't like taking people's monies. So let me be clear, this is not for you if you are not gonna show up and do the work at some point. There is no magic wand. I wish I could figure out a magic wand, but I haven't. And you're gonna have to show up and you have to learn something different. So you're gonna have to embrace change, just a little bit at a time. It will make a difference. So, you know, this is an excellent value. Some of you guys have worked with me before, so you already know how much we charge. And I'm going to help you finally clean up your kitchen table so you can eat there again, so you can go back to working to your office, so you can proudly invite people over, so the kids can have friends over, and they won't be talking about how cluttery your home is with all that paperwork. So join me, and we'll get your paper clutter figured out once for all. So I'm gonna take some questions I'm gonna tie myself. Okay, let's see what's happening over here. I'm gonna start from the top. Okay, so more questions about why do I like hanging folders instead of manila folders? So the reason why I don't love manila folders is because they get bendy and they get dirty, and then people tend to write really scribbly on them. And then they just kind of, you know, the majority of the time you can't store a ton of stuff in them. And then you tend to have, I don't know, 5, 6, maybe 10 inside of a hanging file. And then it's like hard to read, and then you can't see the things behind. So those are some of the reasons why I'm not a fan of manila folders, but not to say that they don't work in some situations. It's just not my favorite thing. I like a clean, broad category hanging file with a big tab, specific words, 1 or 2 words that can jog my memory about what it is that's inside of that folder. And then I can just put more paperwork in there. So it is going to be a little bit fatter. It's going to have more paperwork in there. But let's just say that I was trying to find my favorite meditation location or my favorite website for meditation. I could easily go through, 20, 30 pieces of paper in just a couple of minutes. And then I could easily locate the piece of paper I'm looking for, instead of being like, where did I file that thing away? How many files do I have to sort through it? Is it even here? So that's just my personal opinion on that. So, okay. Oh, what gets archived? Sally, that's a big question. What gets archived is for sure your taxes. I think anything that you filed for your taxes, which is like all of the, the 1099s, the W-2s, the 1098s, all of the receipts, anything that you wrote off, your tax return, all of that doesn't really need to live permanently in your filing system. So I normally recommend people to put that stuff in, depending on how much you have, either in a file bin or, in a smaller shoe bin or whatever, like the men's shoe bin from the Container Store is a great size for paper. So depending on how much paperwork you have, and then just label it taxes, and then you could put it in your closet, in your basement, in your attic. I mean, remember where you put it in case you need it because you get audited, but it definitely doesn't need to be in your filing system. I think kid memorabilia is a big thing I see in people's filing systems, like all of the birthday cards and the notes and the paintings and the drawings and all of the stuff that kids give us. I think, once, like even every 6 months, you can like clean it out, make sure you write dates on it so you remember who it belongs to, Johnny or Sally, and then you can just, put it away in their bin so that can be archived. I think if you own a home, all of the stuff that goes with your home, there are like long-term things like roofs and, HVACs and long-term maintenance, remodeling. There's a lot of that stuff that could be archived that probably doesn't need to be in your easily to access filing system. So I would archive that. Does that give you a couple of ideas? And I think depending on what you're having there could be more, but those are things that just come to mind. Okay. So Elizabeth would very much like to attend boot camp. Woohoo! Love to have you, but she won't be able to attend the sessions live. So yes, there will be a recording, and I will try to get those to you. So the classes are going to be on Thursdays. I'm going to try to get you the recording by like midday on Friday. So then you have plenty of time to listen to them over the weekend and do homework and do things like that. So that worked really well for my other class. So I'm going to try to do that. So shortly after the live video, I hope Friday at lunchtime is shortly after. I am probably going to give it to you earlier than that, but that is my deadline, self-imposed, just in case things come up. Technology sometimes doesn't always work as you plan for it. So the other question is, can I rewatch the webinar today? I was in a meeting and I ran late. Can I rewatch the webinar today? What's the deadline? So yes, I'm going to by lunchtime tomorrow. It's a good deadline for me. I'm going to resend the webinar to everybody that watched it today, or everybody that registered, that came part-time, know it all, and then you can still watch it. I am going to honor all of the bonuses that I gave on the live webinar to everyone until Saturday at midnight. That will give, actually I'm going to give it until Sunday at midnight. That will give everybody time to watch the webinar, take advantage of the bonuses. And I hope that seems fair for some of you that may be procrastinating. I'm going to write that on the email too, so you'll be reminded. So you may have already discussed this since I was late. So will you cover both paper and electronic file cleanup? Thank you, Natalie, for asking that question. In the boot camp, we're mostly going to cover paper management. However, there is no reason why you can't use all of the tools that I'm going to give you on your paper and then just use it exactly the same way for your file, for your electronic files. To me, is the exact same concept, right? You're still, like when I buy something from Amazon and they send me a receipt, like what do you do with that, right? Do you keep that in your email inbox? Do you junk it? Like, could you create a temporary filing system in your email that manages all of this incoming temporary stuff? And then could you just purge it from the bottom or purge it by the date? So I am not going to specifically talk about that. However, I feel 100% that everything that I'm going to teach you about your paper management can be used on your in your electronic. And there's clearly a little bit more to it, but I feel like you're gonna be like 75% there. Where did I get this top? Well, the Banana Republic. Thank you very much. Let's see. Can I post the link again? Okay, that didn't work. Let's try that. Oh, okay, maybe I'll, since I'm a one-woman technology show here, so let's see. Getting out of here. Maybe you can ask more questions. Let's see. Let's see, where am I? Let me find a good link. I apologize, that one didn't work. That's what happens when you have too many windows opened. Okay, let's try this. Okie dokie, I'm trying a different link, see if that works. Okay, maybe, let's see. I think I covered all of that. Let's see, there's more questions over here. Will the slides also be available? The slides are included in the presentation, so if you're okay, I'm not going to give you the slides, but you can have the recording for viewing, and that there was nothing special on my slides, I don't think. Okay. So Whitney says a lot of people don't realize they have brain-based challenges. That is so true, Whitney. Thank you so much for saying that. I think I've been doing this for about 10 years, and I think today there's a lot more understanding about ADHD than there was before. And I actually had a book on my desk. I'm gonna go get it because I think that'll be interesting to show. This is Delivered from Distraction by Dr. Hollowell and Dr. Reddy. And I think this is one of the best books about ADHD. It's like one of my favorite books to give to people. Just, it has a lot of resources included. It has a lot of like explanations about ADHD. I think what's happening now is a lot of children are getting diagnosed, and because they are getting I don't know that I should say diagnosed, but they are getting more help with their ADHD, and they're getting support around it. Their parents are realizing like, oh my God, I see those traits of myself in my children, and maybe I am ADD or ADHD too. And then they are getting more support for themselves. So I think there's a little less stigma around saying I have ADD than there was before. But I agree, there's a lot of people still out there that don't know. Whitney's actually an ADHD coach for moms. So if you're newly diagnosed and you need some help, let me know and I'll hook you guys up, because she is so amazing. Thanks, Whitney, for coming. But there's a lot of people out there that just are still trying to figure out like why can't I just be more organized, or why can't I just, why can't I file, or why can't I focus, or, so if you are being challenged by some of these things and you're feeling like maybe there's something more to it, there are lots of resources out there to help you. I'm speaking at CHAD this year, which is in Atlanta, and they are a huge, huge organization that provides resources for people with ADHD, and that's chadd.org. So I would highly recommend looking them up. See, I think I just saw some more questions. Are most of those people small business owners? If so, will we be sharing the steps, paperwork, and systems that were helpful for you to grow your business? Thanks, Natalie. That's a really good question. I think a lot of I think my clients are like a hybrid of like some people that are just, not self-employed, but like regular paycheck employed people, and they just have problems with their paperwork. And some of my clients are small business owners that have more paperwork. I think having a business increases the amount of paperwork you have. So clearly that becomes more of an issue. It becomes more apparent. Once again, during the bootcamp, we're not going to spend a huge amount of time talking about businesses, but there is no reason why you can't take the basic principles of what we're going to teach you in the bootcamp about how to manage your own paperwork and transpose that into like your business. There's a really quick way to do that. And I think it's like how you organize your temporary files is probably how you should organize your business files, because to me, they're all temporary. So we help you manage that a little bit. But I firmly believe that having an organized business and understanding what your business is doing, how much money you have, what your expenses are, will definitely help with growth. I think having an organized business will also get you better accountability. It will give you better view of your cash, and it will definitely help you with expenses. I don't know how many times I work with people that I basically feel like they could get so many better tax write-offs if their receipts were just better organized, or if they had all of this stuff in one location, because tax time comes around and people are scrambling around trying to find any and all receipts that they can. And if you were keeping that information organized from the beginning, wouldn't it be so much better than if you're just trying to, figure out how to get more receipts and whatnot. So I believe that organizing your paperwork will help you grow your business. I don't have actual proof of it. It's just a hunch. I speak for my own business, I guess. So thank you, Natalie, for all those questions. I appreciate you coming. Becky. Oh, Becky, thank you. I loved it too. Thank you so much for coming. I hope you get to hear me saying goodbye. I really appreciate your support and your participation. It's always so much fun when you do it with your friends. Okay, so it's around 4:30. I have taken a lot of your time. I don't see any more questions. So once again, I guess I can go back to my presentation. Maybe not. No. So once again, you can join me. It's a 4-week fun in the sun. Well, not fun in the sun. Fun with your paperwork. No sun. You could bring a cocktail if you want. Don't recommend it, but hey, whatever it takes to get paperwork organized. We're going to spend 4 weeks together. It will be a lot of fun. I'm going to help you manage your paperwork. There'll be no more piles around. I know that's what you want. So come and join me starting in a couple of weeks. So thank you so much for coming and hang out. I can't believe I talked for an hour and a half. I planned to be here for just an hour, but I hope you learned something. I hope you had some takeaways. If at the very least, you walk away with one lesson, is go home and commingle some stuff and eliminate some files, and maybe become a little bit more ruthless about what you're keeping and why you're keeping it, and just start getting rid of more paperwork so they don't either enter your office to begin with, so you get rid of them, and find a place to put your filing system that's near where you already read the mail. I think if you follow those 3 tips right off the bat, you'll automatically get rid of some paperwork. Anyway, thank you so much for your support. I really appreciate it. I'm so eternally grateful for all of your support and for you coming today. And let me know if you have any comments or questions that you didn't feel like sharing in the group. You know how to find me. Anyway, thank you. I'll see you soon. Bye.